Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandra.
And I'm Him Saran. On the show today, the US Senate has passed Trump's big, beautiful bill on tax breaks and spending cuts by a razor-thin margin after the 50-50 tie was broken by Vice President J.D. Vance. This as Republicans faced a rebellion from within. We'll bring you all the details of this on the show today.
Also on World DNA, in West Asia, Donald Trump says that Israel has finally agreed to the conditions for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza, saying that they will be working with all parties to end the war. Now, it's not clear whether Hamas is going to agree to these conditions and these terms. We'll be bringing you the latest on that as well. Let's start with that.
US President Donald Trump says Israel has agreed to the conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza, urges Hamas to accept the deal. Trump says Qatar and Egypt would deliver this final proposal.
Vice President J.D. Vance casts the tie-breaking vote as Senate passes a major tax and spending bill demanded by Donald Trump. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act now heads back to the U.S. House.
I think we're going to have a deal with India, possibly, and that's going to be a different kind of a deal. It's going to be a deal where we're able to go in and compete.
Trump says the United States could finalize a trade deal with India that would allow American companies to compete in the country.
Foreign ministers of Quad nations condemned the Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 people, called for those behind the attack to be brought to justice.
Thousands gather outside the Istanbul municipality building in a rally to mark the 100th day since the detention of dismissed Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu.
Bizi korkutamazsın. Sinenler, teslim olanlar değil, direnen ve Erdoğan.
At least 5 people killed and 16 others missing as cloudbursts, flash floods wreak havoc in Himachal Pradesh Mandi.
Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell says Trump's tariff plan delayed interest rate cuts as inflation fears grew. Powell added future rates move depend on economic data while Trump continues attacking his leadership.
Mystery drone hovers over US men's national team training ahead of the Gold Cup semi-final. Head coach Mauricio Pochettino unfazed by the intrusion.
Now, the US Senate has approved Donald Trump's mammoth domestic policy bill by the narrowest margins.
And this happened after a 24-hour-long marathon voting session. Vice President J.D. Vance was the one to break the tie after a 50-50 vote, with 3 Republicans joining Democrats in voting against the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Thank you. I'm waiting, listening to these wonderful words, and they are music to my ears, but I was also wondering how we're doing, because I know this is prime time. It shows that I care about you, because I'm here and I probably should be there, but we do care. Thank you very much.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
The vote came after a prolonged vote-a-rama during which senators offered and debated numerous amendments. The nearly 1,000-page legislation. Republican senators Rand Paul, Susan Collins and Tom Tillis voted no with Democrats on the legislation.
Now, the bill aims to extend President Trump's first-term tax cuts at a cost of $4.5 trillion, increase military spending and fund mass deportations and border security. As per the reports, the legislation is expected to add over $3.3 trillion to the national debt over the next decade.
The amended text now heads to the House of Representatives, where it faces unified Democratic opposition and multiple Republicans balking at the budget-busting cause, as well as slashed health care and food aid programs for poor Americans.
We knew the Senate would amend the House product. I encouraged them to amend it as lightly as possible. They went a little further than many of us would have preferred. But we have the product now. As the President said, it's his bill. It's not a House bill, it's not a Senate bill, it's the American people's bill. And my objective and my responsibility is to get that bill over the line. So we will do everything possible to do that, and we'll work with all of our colleagues.
The Speaker has just days to pass the bill before Republicans' self-imposed July 4th deadline. But several Republican lawmakers are already sounding rebellious notes.
One of them is Republican Representative Andy Ogles, who in a post on social media said that he will introduce an amendment to the Senate bill that would delete all its text and replace it with the version passed by the House in May.
An Axios report citing a Republican lawmaker said that there are well over 20 GOP lawmakers threatening to vote against the bill. But President Trump is confident, telling reporters that the bill is going to go easier in the House.
It's a great bill. There is something for everyone, and I think it's going to go very nicely in the House. Actually, I think it will be easier in the House than it was in the Senate.
Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer blasted the Republican voters for voting to pass Trump's sweeping bill.
In one fell swoop, Republicans passed the biggest tax break for billionaires ever seen, paid for by ripping away health care for millions of people and taking food out of the mouths of hungry kids. This is not a big, beautiful bill at all. That's why I moved on the floor to strike the title. It is now called The Act. That's all it's called. But it is really the big, ugly betrayal, and the American people know it. This vote will haunt our Republican colleagues for years to come.
For more on this story, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Listen to this.
Congress is debating a huge budget bill that critics say will blow up the deficit by $3.3 trillion over 10 years. But that scary number is based on an unrealistic assumption, according to experts, that Congress would have let the 2017 tax cuts fully expire this year and trigger a massive $4.5 trillion tax hike, something almost no one in either party wants. Those experts say if the bill is measured against current tax policy, it actually saves about $500 billion over a decade. This comes straight from the CBO estimates using a current policy baseline. Now, the bill also cuts subsidies for renewable energy and raises deduction cap on state and local taxes. In short, while there are flaws like new tax breaks for tips and car loans, this is the first serious attempt to reform entitlement programs in 20 years. Next, the House will take it up and expect fierce fighting over these spending cuts and tax tweaks to continue there as well. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
For more on this, we're now being joined live from Washington, D.C. by John Rossimondo, President of Viking Research Associates, geostrategist and expert on national security. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA. Let me get right to it. I want to first begin by asking you what your assessment of Trump's big, beautiful bill is, which is passed by a razor-thin majority in the Senate. And what do you think is the main bone of contention here?
Well, I think that a lot of the bone of contention is cuts to social programs like Medicaid that millions of Americans depend on for their health insurance because they don't, they're either unemployed or don't qualify for regular health insurance. The other bone of contention is that people like Elon Musk say it'll blow up the U.S. national debt, which is already a record $36 trillion. So I think that you're going to have a lot of deficit hawks that are going to be latching on to this. Plus also it makes Trump's tax cuts from his first term permanent and offers things like, write-offs for car loans and things of that sort that, people who support tax cuts believe will stimulate purchasing of new vehicles and stimulate the economy.
John, seeing what happened in the Senate, it took 24 hours. There was a voting marathon, and finally the one to break that tie was the US Vice President himself. What kind of hurdles do you foresee for this bill going forward? We're just days away from 4th of July.
Well, I foresee that the Republicans will get it over the finish line. I think that Speaker Johnson will ultimately prevail with getting the votes that he needs. And just like we've had a lot of in the past few years, you'll probably have Vice President J.D. Vance once again breaking the tie to pass President Trump's landmark legislation.
Right, absolutely. Now, when we speak about the tax breaks and the spending cuts, you mentioned the entitlement in the social programs as well. What sort of practical implications do you see this having in the days to come?
Well, I think that it'll have an impact on certain individuals who are on these programs, and at the same time, we're facing record national debt. I mean, the United States is the biggest debtor nation in the world, and we can't spend forever. Eventually, it will catch up to us in terms of our economic vitality.
All right, John, thanks so much for joining us here on World DNA. There's going to be, a lot of commotion in the next few days to come as we see this bill head to the House now. That was John Rosamondo joining us from Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
And US President Donald Trump urged Hamas to accept a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza, saying that Israel has already agreed to finalize such a deal.
In a post on social media, Trump said his representatives met with Israeli officials about the raging conflict. Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to seal the agreement, and Qatari and Egyptian mediators would deliver the final proposal.
He hoped that Hamas takes this deal because it will not get better, it will only get worse. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is set to visit the White House for talks on Monday. Earlier, the US President said that he would be very firm with the Israeli Prime Minister when they meet in Washington. And Trump also said that the visit by Netanyahu will be a quick celebration of the Iranian strikes. The strikes on
It's going to be a very quick celebration. We had a great hit. There was a obliteration. Okay, now it turns out it wasn't an obliteration. They demean CNN mostly and the New York Times, fake New York Times. They demean these great soldiers. They went over there 17 hours flying and they hit bullseye after bullseye after bullseye. It all blew up. Everybody saw it.
Furthermore, Israel's campaign continued to rage on, with Gaza's Civil Defense Agency reporting Israeli forces killed at least 26 people on Tuesday.
Images released by the Israeli military show what it says are Israeli tanks maneuvering before entering the Gaza Strip. Israel's military said it has expanded its operations to additional areas within the Gaza Strip, killing dozens of Hamas militants and dismantling hundreds of their sites, both above and below ground.
Meanwhile, Israel's military said that it intercepted a missile launched from Yemen on Tuesday, while the Houthis claimed to have also attacked Israel with drones. Following the sirens that sounded, Israelis rushed to shelters in Jerusalem. Israel has threatened Yemen's Houthi rebels with a naval and air blockade if its attacks on Israel persist.
Houthi military spokesman said that the Yemeni armed forces carried out an operation targeting the airport in the area of Jaffa using a Palestine II hypersonic ballistic missile.
The drone air force of the Yemeni armed forces carried out 3 military operations targeting 3 sensitive sites belonging to the Israeli enemy in the areas of Jaffa, Ashkelon and al-Rashrash in occupied Palestine using 3 drones.
And after the latest Houthi missile launch towards Israel, US Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee wrote this on social media that maybe the US B-2 bombers that were used to carry out strikes against Iran need to visit Yemen.
Ukraine is under siege. The sky is falling and Russia's army is closing in with more than 5,000 drones.
Russia is boasting of a troop battalion of 160,000. Cities are shaking under nightly strikes with the front lines crumbling. Ukraine is facing its most intense assault since the war began. And the message from Moscow is clear. The worst is yet to come. More in this next report. Take a look.
Ukraine is not merely at war. It is enduring an escalating inferno, bombarded by an unprecedented torrent of Russian aerial weapons and staring down the barrel of colossal ground offensives. The numbers alone tell a chilling story of escalating brutality. Russia, determined to crush Ukrainian resistance, unleashed a staggering 5,337 kamikaze drones throughout June alone. This is a new monthly record that highlights a shift towards overwhelming saturation attacks. On a single terrifying Sunday, Russia barraged Ukraine with a total of 537 aerial weapons, including 477 drones and 60 missiles, in what Ukrainian officials described as the largest air attack since the full-scale invasion began. The sheer volume is designed to exhaust Ukraine's air defense systems, forcing them to expend precious high-cost interceptors on cheap disposable drones. A Ukrainian F-16 pilot was killed while attempting to repel this massive airstrike. His aircraft downed in the inferno. But the skies are not the only battlefield. On the ground, the threat is equally, if not more, terrifying. Ukraine's army chief Alexander Syrsky has issued a stark warning. Russia has amassed a colossal force of 111,000 troops near Pokrovsk, a critical strategic point in eastern Ukraine. This immense concentration signals an imminent, large-scale offensive designed to punch through Ukrainian lines and seize vital territory. Adding to the chilling picture, another 50,000 Russian troops are positioned near Sumy in the north, creating a dual threat that stretches Ukraine's already strained defenders to breaking point. These aren't merely defensive postures. They are formations for a grinding, brutal advance poised to engulf more Ukrainian towns and villages in a firestorm of steel and blood. The convergence of these two massive threats, an unending aerial bombardment designed to deplete defenses and terrorize civilians, coupled with massive ground forces poised for deep penetration, presents Ukraine with its most existential crisis yet. Facing the immense odds, Ukraine unleashed one of its deepest strikes inside Russian territory. The drone hit an industrial plant in Izhevsk, about 1,000 kilometers east of Moscow. The attack sparked a fire at the plant, which manufactures drones for the Russian military. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer avoided a humiliating parliamentary defeat on key welfare reforms.
But his authority took a blow after he was forced to abandon a key plank of his welfare reforms in the face of a mass rebellion by Labour members.
The Prime Minister ditched cuts to disability benefits that sparked the most serious internal rebellion of his year-long premiership. Starmer made the last-minute concessions after Labour whips concluded that the government risked losing a vote in the Commons. Starmer had already staged a climb down last week on controversial plans to slash disability and sickness benefits following a major revolt from Labour MPs who argued that the proposals went too far.
The ruling party enjoys a huge majority in the lower house of Commons, with more than 80% of its MPs needing to rebel to defeat a bill. Despite agreeing on Friday to water down the changes, an ongoing backlash from his MPs forced further major concessions just hours before a crunch vote on the legislation. They included delaying cuts planned till 2026 until after a review led by Social Security and Disability Minister. That ensured the vote easily went the government's way, with 335 MPs backing the legislation compared to 260 voting against, a majority of 75.
The ayes the right, 335. The noes the left, 260. So the ayes have it, unlock.
The series of big concessions left the bill, which had aimed to save billions of pounds from the country's ballooning welfare bill, in tatters. Critics branded the revised legislation farcical. Nigel Farage, leader of the surging far-right Reform UK party, posted, and I quote here, 1 year of Starmer, 1 year of U-turns. The parliamentary wrangling has also clouded the first anniversary of Labour's return to power after 14 years in opposition.
Now, Starmer had hoped the legislation would cut £5 billion from the welfare budget, but that estimate fell to £2.5 billion after last week's initial concessions, and it was unclear what, if any, savings would be made now. Now, a new wave of violence has swept across western Mali.
In the latest escalation of a decade-long insurgency, suspected jihadists launched a coordinated attack on multiple military installations. Mali's military confirmed that 7 army positions were targeted in the early hours, and there are no reports of casualties as of now, including an army camp in the strategic western city of Kais.
The gold-rich region that lies on the border with Senegal has become a hub for Al-Qaeda and ISIS offshoots. Heavy gunfire and explosions have been reported near a government building. Attacks have also been reported in at least 4 other towns, including a town located directly on the border with Senegal.
The Mali army says that it is monitoring the situation closely, promising to release more details as they become available. Groups like Jamaat Nusrat, aka JNIM, and Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, also known as ISIS Sahel, are most active in this region. This latest wave of assaults comes just weeks after a series of high-profile attacks, including a coordinated strike on Timbuktu's military base and airport on the 2nd of June, and a deadly raid that killed at least 30 soldiers in central Mali a day earlier.
Mali has been grappling with a violent insurgency for over a decade, fueled by groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, as well as separatist factions and criminal gangs. The violence isn't contained to Mali alone, it has swept across the Sahel region.
Dubai has marked a major milestone in urban mobility with the successful test flight of its first fully electric air taxi.
The demonstration is a display of Emirates' progress in launching commercial aerial taxi services as early as 2026. Take a look. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. When we come back, Elon Musk's feud with President Donald Trump is escalating, and this time the stakes are even higher. Musk, who spent over $250 million backing Trump in his presidential campaign in 2024, is now leading a sharp rebellion against the president's big, beautiful bill. We'll bring you the details.
Rising temperatures in South Korea invited a strange problem. Residents in capital Seoul are grappling with an invasion of so-called love bugs. For more details, stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with him. I'm Shivan. Let's start with the headlines.
US is halting some shipments of weapons to Ukraine amid concerns that its own stockpiles have declined too much. White House says the decision was made to put America's interests first after review of defense support to other nations.
Vice President J.D. Vance casts the tie-breaking vote as Senate passes a major tax and spending bill demanded by Donald Trump. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act now heads back to the US House.
US President Donald Trump says Israel has agreed to the conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza, urges Hamas to accept the deal. Trump says Qatar and Egypt would deliver this final proposal.
India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh talks to US counterpart Pete Hegseth over long-term defence cooperation. Reports say early delivery of GE 404 jet engines for advanced versions of Tejas aircraft discussed during the talks.
I think we're going to have a deal with India, possibly, and that's going to be a different kind of a deal. It's going to be a deal where we're able to go in and compete.
President Trump says US could finalize a trade deal with India that would allow American companies to compete in the country.
Foreign ministers of Quad nations condemned the Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 people. Call for those behind the attack to be brought to justice.
Thousands gathered outside Istanbul's municipality to protest, to rally and to mark the 100 days since the detention of dismissed Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu.
Geçmişte o Teyyar ışıkları kapatalım. Yiğidimize, aslanımıza.
At least 5 people killed and 16 others missing as cloudbursts, flash floods wreak havoc in Himachal Pradesh's Mandi district.
US job openings rose unexpectedly in May, but hiring slowed, signaling a cooling labor market. Uncertainty over Trump's tariff policy is weighing on business confidence and long-term hiring plans.
A mystery drone hovers over US men's national team training ahead of the Gold Cup semi-final. Head coach Mauricio Pochettino was unfazed by the intrusion. The Secretary of State of the United States and the foreign ministers of Australia, India and Japan met in Washington, D.C. for the 10th Quad Foreign Ministers meeting, where they launched key initiatives to advance a free and open Indo-Pacific.
They also condemned the terror attack in India's Jammu and Kashmir in April, reaffirming their commitment to regional stability.
Now, the Quad Foreign Ministers in a joint statement condemned the April 22nd terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam that killed 26 people, calling for the perpetrators and financiers to be brought to justice promptly.
Now they urged all UN member states to cooperate actively with relevant authorities in accordance with international law and relevant UN Security Council resolutions.
India's Minister for External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar, defended Operation Sindoor, a military operation launched in response to the Pahalgam attack. The operation targeted terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, with India's armed forces conducting precision strikes on 9 terrorist sites.
A word about terrorism in the light of our recent experience. The world must display zero tolerance. Victims and perpetrators must never be equated, and India has every right to defend its people against terrorism, and we will exercise that right. We expect our Quad partners to understand and appreciate that.
Now, Jaishankar's statement comes as India deferred with Trump's claims that his intervention and threats to cut off trade talks averted a major conflict between India and Pakistan following the Pahalgam attack.
Meanwhile, at the joint meeting with Japanese Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya, Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong, Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that the Quad grouping must be a vehicle for action, stressing that commerce and trade will be critical to ensuring the group's relevance in the future.
Now, his statement comes as the Trump administration seeks to expand its influence in the Indo-Pacific to compete with the rising China amid tensions with Quad members over trade and defense issues.
The next step in this great partnership is to actually begin to see concrete actions and steps being taken in conjunction with one another, in coordination with one another, in partnership with one another for the benefit of our respective countries and ultimately of many other countries in the world.
Among the key decisions taken by the grouping was the launch of the Quad Critical Minerals Initiative, aimed at collaborating on securing and diversifying supply chains. The ministers announced initiatives to strengthen maritime and transnational security, economic prosperity, critical and emerging technology, and support humanitarian assistance and emergency response efforts in the Indo-Pacific.
Now, for more on this, a correspondent, Susan Tehrani, has sent us this report from New York. Listen to this.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio hosted his Quad counterparts, reaffirming the Quad as a vehicle for action, not just dialogue. Rubio emphasized turning ideas into concrete outcomes, particularly on diversifying critical mineral supply chains and strengthening economic and security cooperation. India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar highlighted shared commitments to a rule-based, free and open Indo-Pacific, noting recent Quad advances in areas like maritime logistics, education, and political cooperation. And while the United States-India ties faces some obstacles regarding tariffs and trade issues, both sides stressed that managing differences is key and that the partnership remains very productive. Earlier, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent revealed progress toward a U.S.-India tariff deal to ease levies on American exports to India. Overall, it appears both nations have signaled a willingness to move forward, keeping strategic goals at the forefront. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Now, Elon Musk's feud with President Donald Trump is escalating, and this time the stakes are higher.
Musk, who spent some over $250 million backing Trump in Trump's presidential campaign in 2024, is now leading a sharp rebellion against the president's big, beautiful bill.
Now, what started as criticism of the bill has turned ugly and personal after Musk endorsed the idea of a new political party. Trump is now threatening to withdraw federal subsidies to Musk's companies and suggested Musk could head back to South Africa when asked about deportation. The threat of deportation, while extreme, has sparked legal debate.
Musk became a US citizen in 2002, but allegations have surfaced about whether he misrepresented facts during his immigration process. Under US law, denaturalization is rare and requires strong proof of fraud. Between 1990 and 2017, the government pursued only a handful of such cases per year. Musk denies any wrongdoing and calls past visa concerns a legal grey area.
But beyond citizenship, the financial implications are immediate. Tesla risks losing $1.2 billion annually in EV tax credits and an additional $2 billion in regulatory credit sales if the emission rules are rolled back. SpaceX, meanwhile, depends heavily on government contracts for launches and satellite services.
The Musk Trump fallout is already rippling through markets. Tesla stocks dropped 7% on Tuesday after a 2% loss the day before. And that follows a 14% plunge in early June. During their initial public spat, investors worry that Trump may follow through on threats to review contracts and subsidies involving Tesla, SpaceX and Musk's other ventures.
Meanwhile, Musk has floated the idea of launching a new political outfit, the America Party, and says he's prepared to spend more to unseat lawmakers who back this bill.
Trump has responded by suggesting DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, may investigate Musk's business empire. And for now, the clash continues, raising questions about the future of US politics. And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani sent us this report from New York.
Elon Musk just called President Trump's big, beautiful bill utterly insane, warning it would kill jobs, and he's now threatening to fund primary challenges against Republicans who back it. He mocked the GOP as being the Porky Pig Party. Trump hit back by suggesting Musk companies depend on federal subsidies and hinted that he might cut Tesla and SpaceX's support or even review Musk's immigration status. Tesla shares have fallen 7% as the clash escalates. The fight is now spilling into the House vote and possibly the 2026 primaries. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
June was BYD's strongest month for vehicle sales so far this year.
And this comes following a price cut across the board that garnered criticism from both government officials and trade groups. At the same time, Tesla sales are expected to remain stagnant in the June quarter after March quarter deliveries fell to an almost 3-year low.
Now, Chinese car-making juggernaut sold 377,628 vehicles last month. Of those, 206,884 were passenger battery electric automobiles. The 10% increase in June from the previous year contributed to the first half's volume reaching 2.1 million units. BYD's discounts reaching 34% on certain models in late May appear to have fallen short of generating the anticipated sales increase. The discount concerns raised by investors regarding the impact on profit margins have resulted in a loss exceeding $20 billion in the company's market value. Additionally, the significant discount has drawn criticism from policymakers. Officials have lambasted the industry for engaging in a rate race competition.
They also warned automakers about the necessity of self-regulating their pricing strategies. Despite BYD's lower than expected sales figures, the Chinese automaker seems to be gaining on Tesla with each passing month. The US EV maker is likely to report another year-over-year drop later this week. In May, Tesla saw a decline in overall sales in Europe for the 5th consecutive month. Tesla sales fell nearly 30%, while the overall EV market in the region grew by about 30%. JP Morgan estimates that Tesla's EV deliveries are likely to fall 19% year-on-year to 360,000 units. Tesla's March quarter deliveries, meanwhile, were at an almost 3-year low.
Now, Tesla CEO Elon Musk has taken oversight of sales in Europe and the US. Musk's focus on Europe is significant as the continent is currently Tesla's weakest market. Sales in the region have declined in recent months. Just 512 new Teslas were registered in the UK in April, down 62% from a year prior. Tesla saw even larger year-over-year declines in Denmark, the Netherlands and Sweden.
Musk's commitment to refocusing on Tesla is a welcome move. His time in Washington has been overshadowed by his political affiliations and participation in the Trump administration's cost-cutting initiatives, and that has negatively impacted Tesla's brand perception in Europe. Tesla's aging vehicle lineup and absence of hybrid models have contributed to its diminished competitiveness against rising Chinese automakers such as BYD. China is suffering from heavy rainfall and floods, which are triggered in several regions of central and southern China. Thousands of people have been evacuated to safety.
Now, China's central province of Hubei has witnessed heavy rainfall. The downpour dumped more than a month's worth of rain in just 12 hours on the city of Xiangfen, forcing authorities to evacuate 18,000 people to safety. Water and power supplies were disrupted, prompting the closure of schools and suspension of bus services in the region.
More than 70,000 people evacuated in China's Sichuan province, while in the province of Henan, 3 people were killed while 5 went missing. More than 220 millimeters of rainfall poured over 2 rural towns in just 3 hours.
Rescue and relief operations are being carried out with full dedication. More than 230 volunteers are working after providing relief to residents affected by the flood machinery, which has been used to clear the mud on roads and streets after the water levels of the Dulio River dropped. And at least 31 people have died and 151 others have been injured in monsoon-related disasters in Nepal.
And this within a month since the onset of monsoons on the 28th of May. According to the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Authority, NDRRMA, between 28th of May and 30th of June, the country experienced 682 incidents linked to the monsoons, including floods, landslides, lightning strikes and windstorms. In response to the situation, the NDRRMA and the Association for Civil Aviation Operations signed an agreement to mobilize private helicopters for rescue and relief activities as needed during the season. Lightning was the leading cause of fatalities, accounting for 8 deaths, followed by floods and high-altitude sickness, which claimed 4 lives each.
1 person each died due to the windstorms and heavy rainfall. The disaster also led to the death of 222 animals and caused property damage estimated at 333.43 million, which is about $2.5 million. A total of 97 homes were damaged. 1,026 families were affected by the landslides and floods induced by heavy rain across various parts of the country.
The rising temperatures in South Korea have invited a strange problem. Residents in capital Seoul are grappling with an invasion of so-called love bugs.
These bugs have swarmed hiking trails in urban areas across the city, with experts debating on how to handle the infestation. The bugs, formerly called the Plesia longiforceps, have been nicknamed the love bugs because female and male bugs fly attached to each other while mating.
Originally from warm climates, the bugs' numbers during summer in the wider Seoul metropolitan area have surged in recent years, partly due to rising temperatures. The love bugs themselves pose no direct threat to humans. They do not bite, they do not transmit diseases or feed significantly as adults. But public patience is wearing thin. A Seoul Institute survey found 86% of residents consider love bugs as pests, ranking them as the 3rd most unpleasant insect after cockroaches and bedbugs.
On to sports now. World number 1 Yannick Sinner has cruised into the 2nd round at Wimbledon. The Italian needed just 1 hour and 48 minutes to dispatch compatriot Luca Nardi.
Sinner arrived in London after 2 disappointing results. He let slip 3 championship points in the French Open final against Carlos Alcaraz and then suffered a round of 16 exit at the Halle Open last month. But against his fellow Italian, he looked very much like the world number 1. Sinner fired 5 aces and hit 11 winners to take the first set 6-4. Unfazed by the sweltering heat, he kept the pressure on throughout the match. The gulf between the players became increasingly apparent as the match wore on. The world number 1 converted 5 of his 13 break points and did not face a single one on his own serve. He barely broke a sweat in a 6-4, 6-3, 6-0 victory that took just 1 hour and 48 minutes. And this is Sinner's 5th appearance at Wimbledon, with a semi-final finish in 2023 marking his best result yet.
Yeah, it's a new tournament, new chances, new challenges. You know, you have one opponent at a time, so very happy about today. And obviously, I try to keep going, try to enjoy, to play here. If you don't enjoy to play on these courts, I don't know where you're going to enjoy. So I'm very happy to be here, and let's see what's coming.
The battle between India and England heads to Edgbaston for the second test.
The biggest question for the Indian team remains if pace spearhead Jasprit Bumrah will be included in the playing 11.
Now, in the clearest indication yet that Bumrah will not feature, the pacer did not take an active part in training on Monday in Birmingham and only bowled a few overs while mainly taking part in warm-up exercises. Remember, Bumrah will only play 3 of the 5 tests in a bid to manage his workload, but the Indian team management has still not confirmed which 3 he will play in. In fact, the coaching staff says that a call on his selection for the second test will be taken at the last minute.
Yeah, he's available for the game. Obviously, we know from the start he's only going to play 3 out of the 5. He's obviously had 8 days to recover from the last test. But, you know, given conditions and workload and how we think we can best manage for the next 4 games, we haven't made a call on that. We're going to see where the other guys are with their workload as well. So technically, yes, he is available, but we haven't made a decision on whether he's going to play or not yet.
Oh, wrong to say it.
Bumrah bowled 43 overs in India's defeat in the first test at Headingley, and his absence will force India to rejig their bowling attack. Arshdeep Singh could be his replacement, while all-rounder Shardul Thakur could make way for Nitish Kumar Reddy.
We're trying to make the best assessment of what we see in front of us. So we know we're going to need 3 seamers in this game, and it's just how you manage that 6, 7, 8 role. The guys are going to play that role, and whether we can fit Kuldeep in now or again save him for later in the series, where if the weather stays like I said, it should turn somewhere along the line.
As for England, they will be in confident mood after pulling off a famous win in the opening test. Pacer Jofra Archer is back with the squad, but he is unlikely to feature in the second test, and England could go with an unchanged 11 for the test. Their record at Edgbaston against India is almost perfect. Out of the 8 tests played, England have won 7 and drawn just once against the men in blue.
Sometimes when we do come here and it's England v India, it's like 50-50 with the support, which adds to the spectacle of this week. But yeah, we all love playing at Edgbaston. The atmosphere is awesome, and yeah, we've got a pretty good record here, so we always enjoy the week. Food's great as well, so that helps.
Now, if you've ever heard of shoes made of gold and porcelain, a third-generation shoemaker from Serbia has designed a one-of-its-kind footwear. Take a look.
I often get expensive, branded shoes brought to me for repair, but the quality is not worth the money they pay. And then I wanted to make some shoes that will only be made of exclusive materials and not using standard shoes that have pressed cardboard inside, or insole, what you step on. We used carbon, so we didn't use anything cheap. It's a leather sole, but it's gilded with golden leaves. And we had a lot of problems until we got the sole and shine we wanted, because when gilders do gilding, they over-varnish it, and it kind of kills that shine. But I didn't want to protect the gold with anything. I wanted it to be so that when you literally hold the shoe in your hand, you can feel the gold.
The third season of Squid Game is out and fans can't seem to get enough of it.
And as part of its promotion strategy, the Millennium Bridge has transformed into a giant jump rope for the finale. Take a look. And with that, we call it a wrap on this edition of World DNA.
Step into a short break. After that, news and updates continue on the other side. Stay with us.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in. Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.